Mr. Vikri, I'd like to come over to you first, sir, to ask you this question. We spoke right now about the House of Representatives and their Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, a few minutes ago. And so Nancy Pelosi's House saw an attack a few days ago in which her partner, Paul Pelosi in particular, was attacked. In the days after that, we also saw a lot of misreporting about what took place. Many questions were asked, and I want to ask you there, in this election cycle, what has the prevalence of what we in India call fake news, what has the prevalence of that been?
Well, I think the prevalence of the attack on Mr. Pelosi is an harbinger of what may be happening in American politics, shifting from verbal abuse to actual physical abuse. I think that it is very deplorable. Unfortunately, it seems that it is having very, very little effect on the Republican base, and particularly those who are trying to excite the Republican base. As you know, both the former president, his son, Elon Musk, and others have sent out misleading information, repeated it. So it's not really, unfortunately, having an effect there to be able to shift the people to see that we have gone too far in terms of vilification. It remains to be seen whether or not, if there is a change in the House of Representatives particularly, and even the possibility of the Senate, that there will be some moderation. After all, it is the case that members of Congress, whether they be Republican or Democratic, have an interest in physical safety. So it is to be hoped that the modicum of politeness and so forth will come back to some degree. Unfortunately, at this point, there is no actual on-the-ground proof that that is happening.
Right. Can I just come back to you, Raymond, with this follow-up question too? Why do you think that is? Why do you think discussions around this incident have largely been missing from being a real headliner in this election cycle?
Well, it's because the American electorate is so divided and is so whipped up. In social media, you get results by showing eyeballs and the numbers of tweets or other forms of communication which excite people. And so what has happened is that in the absence of any kind of control, the play upon the anger of people has proven to be more beneficial to the pockets of those who are promoting those platforms than is peaceful resolution and the ability to reach compromise. So I think when something like this comes along, even other things like mass shootings, whatever it is, there is an incentive in our present system of communication to try to discount whatever it is that is not in accordance with your position. And this has to change. Democracy can't remain half free and half pointed toward just making money out of those who are most angry. And it's a problem which is facing all democracies, including in India, including around the world. And it's up to us as the two greatest democracies, the U.S. and India, to be able to work together to try to get a handle on how we moderate this so that we can have a decent civil discourse.
All right, stay with us, sir. I want to now go over to Senator Paul Strauss. Paul, thank you for waiting with us over the last few minutes. Paul, I want to ask you over here this question. I'd like to understand from you, when it comes to the entire election story, how do we expect, if the Republicans, and this is a big if, but if the Republicans win control of the Senate and win control of the House of Representatives, how can we expect the Democrats to use this short period before January?
Well, let's not come up and accept that doomsday scenario yet. That would be unfortunate if that happens. Democrats have been fighting aggressively in swing states, and I'm expecting us to perform better than expected tonight. I'm here in Philadelphia, where we're going to elect a new governor for the state of Pennsylvania. We're optimistic about picking up the Senate seat with. I don't want to suggest that. The Senate is an institution that still requires 60 votes to get anything done. So what's going to happen is that you're going to have a government that's not going to be able to accomplish much. That's going to be bad for this country. That's going to be bad for the world, which is why I'm expecting voters to come out, as they have today in large numbers, and at a minimum, allow Democrats to perhaps keep control of the Senate. Given the number of House seats that have flipped already and the few the Republicans need, I'm less optimistic about us keeping the House. But I do think we have a reasonable chance in the Senate, where the focus is more on individual candidates than the national parties. But it is certainly going to be very, very challenging for the president to move forward with an agenda. We barely have control of the Senate now. It is evenly divided, and only a tie broken by the vice president that does not regularly sit in the Senate actually gets some legislation passed. But most of the legislation has been stalled because you need 60 votes to pass a bill in the Senate, and very few bills can get that threshold. And so, regardless of whether Democrats take control, you're likely to see a lot of gridlock going forward. It would take a gain of 2 or 3 seats for the Democrats to really give Biden a clear path forward to influence legislation.
Thank you. All right, let me very quickly go back to Raymond for this next question. Raymond, I'd like to understand from you. We've had experts over the last few hours on our show, and there seems to be some debate on what the top priorities are of voters. Now, obviously, it will be impossible to know until we fully get our numbers in, but this question of whether it is the economy or it is crime rates across the country, and whether or not it even needs to be an either or question. What is your opinion or your perspective on that?
Well, my view, and you have to understand, I was President Clinton's Assistant Secretary of Commerce, and so I believe in the James Carville maxim that it is the economy, stupid. And I don't believe that there is anything which is fundamentally displaced that. I think that's a shame, because democracy is on the ballot. The question of rights, a woman's right to choose, is on the ballot. But for the average voter, inflation, the price of gas are absolutely fundamental. And there are not very many people, in terms of a plurality, who would understand the way in which the economy works, not only at the national level, but internationally. That in fact, inflation is a worldwide phenomenon, that the Federal Reserve, in terms of monetary policy, plays a basic role, that there needs to be a way in which you can increase the supplies through supply chains that takes a long time to recover after a pandemic. Those kinds of arguments are not very effective with average voters. Average voters, particularly in a midterm, they want to see change. If they elected somebody to be president 2 years ago, and things are not immediately better, there are a large number of people who say, well, I'll just change it again and it'll happen. That's a weakness in terms of democracy, but one we've had to live with for hundreds of years here in the United States, and I think we'll live with it again and come out on the other side. But right now, in the midterms, there's no question that the economy is a driving force. It won't be carrying the field everywhere. I'm very happy to hear that in Pennsylvania, the Democrats are doing relatively well. But overall, it is a driving force, no question about it in my mind.
Okay.